One fine morning, the engines were getting ready for work. "Isn't it a lovely day?" said Thomas the tank engine.
"It is if you want to cook an egg on your boiler."
"What heat!" Gordon huffed. Percy was confused. "Why would I cook on my boiler when I have a hot firebox?"
"The only thing that's cooked is your smoke box," snapped James.
"He means it's too hot, and he's right." "I don't mind the heat. A cool drink at the water tower always makes me feel better. I happen to like sunshine." James didn't say anything after that, and Thomas went to fill his tanks with water. Afterwards, he went off to his branch line. Everyone knows Thomas thinks it's the pride of the railway, and he always says so. Later that day, he saw James again. He looked very hot and bothered.
"My passengers won't stop complaining about how hot my coaches are. It's not my fault," grumbled James. "And what about me? My fire's making me hot too."
And James huffed away. "Today is too nice to complain," said Thomas to Edward. "I don't see why James doesn't cheer up." "Every engine has their day, I suppose," Edward smiled. "James just has too much steam in his smoke box," chuckled Thomas. "Maybe tomorrow he'll be able to enjoy the sun." But the next day wasn't sunny. Dark clouds hung overhead. "Driver said it won't storm, but it's gonna be a miserable day," Duck said.
"Not for me. My passengers won't be complaining now. This is going to be a wonderful day," James cheered.
Thomas didn't feel cheery. He felt cold and wet. "I don't care for rain, and neither do Annie and Clarabelle. Edward said every engine has their day," said Thomas sadly. "Maybe you've already had yours," said Percy quietly.
"Huh, silly,"
Gordon muttered. But Thomas was worried. Thomas collected Annie and Clarabelle. They were not pleased with the weather. "Oh, I do hate going out in the rain," said Annie. Clarabelle agreed. "I wish we could just stay in our nice dry shed." "So do I," Thomas said. "But we must keep to schedule." Thomas set off, but the wind and rain made his journey most uncomfortable. By the time he reached the next station, he felt very tired. "At least a nice drink of water will make me feel better," he thought. But he was wrong. "Yesterday's heat dried up our water supply, and our pump is out of order. You'll have to fill up at the next station," said the station master. "What could make this day any worse?" Thomas cried. He soon found out. Halfway to the next station, Thomas ran out of water. "At least James isn't here to see me," Thomas thought wearily. James wanted to tease Thomas, but when he saw how sad he was, he decided to be kind. "Don't worry, Thomas. It could happen to any engine. You've just had a bad day. And look, the sun's coming out now. I'll help you to the next station." "Well done, James," said Sir Topham Hatt. "Thank you for being so helpful." He turned to Thomas. "I know you've had a trying day, but you've still made efforts to maintain spirits and be a really useful engine. That's why I'm sending you to the seaside tomorrow on a special." "Oh, yes, sir. Thank you, sir," Thomas peeped. Thomas filled up with water and was soon on his way home. "You know," said Thomas to Annie and Clarabelle, "I don't think it matters what kind of day it is. What does matter is that we make the most of whatever comes our way. And then that makes us the best that we can be, too." James the Red Engine likes to coast along the line, pulling both cars and passengers. He is always greeted by familiar faces and places he has known for many years. One day, he saw Edward with some flatbeds. They were loaded with rails and sleepers. "What are those for?" asked James. "These are for the new line being built. It's going to replace the one you take now." James was cross. New line? What's wrong with the old one?
Old things get worn out.
Well, you would know a lot about that, Edward.
Before Edward could reply, James snorted away. James collected his coaches and was soon steaming along. He passed under a bridge, and some children waved and cheered. "Look," they cried, "here comes James!" On his way home, James saw Edward and the workman again. Though he didn't want to admit it, he was worried. Months passed, and the days grew colder. At last, the new line was finally open. James was getting ready for his first run.
I don't see why I can't just go the old way, he huffed. If I were you, Donald said, I'd be pleased to have a change. Day in, day out. It's always the same for me.
Some of us like things just the way they are, James grumbled. The new line was very different. Nobody waved or cheered that he was coming. Then there was trouble. "Look," he cried,
"There's Duck! He's going to hit us!"
The driver shut off steam and applied the brakes. James came screeching to a halt.
"What are you playing at, Duck? You nearly caused an accident,"
James wheezed. "Did not." Duck was annoyed. "I had a red signal, so I'm the one who had to stop, not you." James felt very foolish.
"Now I'm going to be late. That's not my fault."
James was late. He heard stern words from Sir Topham Hatt. The other engines thought the situation was very funny indeed.
"Don't worry, James," laughed Henry. "I'm not going to run into you. No need to stop." "That's it,"
thought James, and he began to make a plan. The next morning, James was ready to go.
Come on,
he urged his driver and fireman. James quickly collected his trucks, and without hesitation, he hurried away. Normally, Edward left first with the works train, but since James left before him, the points were still set to the old line. James rattled over the switch.
"Ha-ha! What a clever plan!"
Then there was trouble. James didn't know that Edward and the workmen had begun tearing up the old tracks. By the time James realized, it was too late.
"Oh no!"
Luckily, no one was hurt. It wasn't long before Edward came to James's rescue. "If I didn't know any better," Edward said slowly, "I'd say you ended up here on purpose." James knew that he had to tell Edward the truth.
"Oh, Edward, I just wanted to go back to the way things were before that silly new line."
"You can't go back, James. Things change," Edward said softly. "But so have you," Edward smiled. "You're a different engine now than when I first met you."
"I'm the same as I've always been."
"Oh, I don't know about that. The old James would have thrown a fit about pulling cars, but I haven't heard you complain in a long time." "Well, complain about cars anyway." The two friends laughed, and James knew Edward was right. James still misses his old journeys sometimes, but I'm happy to say he's discovered the value of new ones too.
"Although many things change," he'd say, "some things never do."
Duck, the Great Western Engine, is a proud member of Sir Topham Hatt's railway. He is reliable, hard-working, and really useful. Sir Topham Hatt was very pleased with his work. "Well done," he would say. "I can always count on you, Duck." One day, Duck was sent to collect some stone trucks from the quarry. He stood at the water tower, but no water came out. "We'll have to fill up at the quarry then," said his driver. When Duck arrived, Toby greeted him. "Hello, it's nice to see you, Duck. I could use some help keeping these trucks in order." "Sorry, Toby," Duck replied. "I'm only here to take these trucks to the harbor." "Besides," Duck continued, "you're so good at keeping them in line, I'd probably only get in the way." Toby smiled, and Duck ran off to find the water tower. He was soon disappointed. "Out of order," read the sign. bother, cried Duck. What will we do now? Don't worry, there's another tower on the way out of the quarry. We'll use that one instead, said his driver. Let's get the trucks in order first. Duck set to work organizing his train. He coupled up and tried to pull away. His driver looked the train over. These silly trucks have their brakes on, he said. I wish I could help Toby. These trucks are more trouble than ever, Duck thought. There's the tower, cried Duck. But look at that siding. Both us and our trucks will never fit there. We must leave the line open. We'll leave our trucks in another siding and then come back for them after we filled with water. And so they did. Duck felt much better after a drink. Now let's go finish our job. But when he arrived, his trucks were nowhere to be seen. Duck was most upset. What will Sir Topham Hatt say? They searched up and down the line, but could not find the missing trucks. They soon had to give up. We'd best go back to the quarry, said his driver. The quarry was in a terrible mess when Duck returned. He spoke to Mavis about his situation. I'm sorry, she said, but I have far too many trucks here to worry about yours. Oh dear, I'm sure to be in trouble now. He was so caught up in worrying that he didn't notice the red flag. Stop, yelled Mavis. But it was too late. Poor Duck. Soon he was helping to clear the mess. If I can't find my trucks, he thought, then maybe I can at least help Toby. Duck set to work arranging and organizing the yard. Toby had been right. There was a lot of work to do, but Duck persisted and carried on. He was busy until the sun set and it was time to go home. Thank you, Duck. You are a good friend for helping Toby, said Mavis kindly. Duck was glad to have helped, but he was still worried. That night at the sheds, Duck told Toby all about his missing trucks. Sir Topham Hatt is sure to think I'm a very foolish engine, sighed Duck sadly. No, he won't, laughed Toby. I took your trucks for you. I saw them in the siding and figured you could use some help. Oh, thank you. That does take the weight off of my wheels. Mavis told me about what you did, Toby continued. That was very kind indeed. Of course. I'm sorry I didn't help you earlier. That's all right. You were only trying to do your own job. Now I know that helping a friend is one of the most important jobs an engine can have. I know another important job, yawned Gordon. What's that? Being quiet and letting big engines get some sleep.